I want to end this lecture by introducing a mini summary of the course so far. And this is a technique, quite a simple technique, but a technique that I found very powerful because what it does is synthesize a lot of what we have discussed until now in the course. And this specific technique I apply to difficult situations when I'm facing periods in my life, and it could be a long period or one day that is very difficult for me. You know, when I experience anxiety or stress or high levels of disappointment. And this is the alternative in many ways to the 3 M's. So remember the 3 M's: magnifying, minimizing, and making up, inventing. So the 3 P's are an alternative. The first P is the permission to be human. So if I experience a difficult experience, I go through a hard time, the first step is to give myself permission, and that would mean accepting of the emotion, accepting that it's difficult, accepting reality. Something just happened. There is nothing I can do about what has just happened. What can change is perhaps my interpretation of what has happened, which is where I get to the next level, the next step. And this is reframing, interpreting the situation as positive. And that would be the benefit finder. What's the silver lining here? What is the growth opportunity here? So if I'm going through a very difficult time, perhaps to look at it through the Buddhist perspective and say, well, this is a tool for growth. This will help me better understand myself as well as others, become a better psychologist, become a better business person, whatever it is. Seeing it again, the silver lining, the opportunity in failure. And finally, one very important thing that we didn't talk about much, just in passing, is distraction, is looking toward other places. It's not always good. In fact, as we'll talk about next time, it's sometimes detrimental to stay and analyze every single emotion, feeling, thought that comes up. Ruminating in and of itself does not always help. Sometimes the best thing to do is when a negative thought comes up or a negative feeling comes up, is to distract ourselves from it by, for example, going to listen to a piece of music, going for a run, talking to someone either about that or something else. Now this is very different from avoiding, because it's not about saying, all right, I'm not going to deal with any of the issues in my life. It's just saying that if there is a recurrent thought or feeling and I'm experiencing a Sisyphean battle against it, you know, pushing the stone up and then being pushed down again, up and down again, sometimes it is better, more helpful to just say, okay, I'm not going to ruminate, it's pointless, this neural pathway in my mind has been so reinforced, it's not going anywhere. And then to say, let me move on, let me listen to a nice piece of music, let me go for a run. That will really help get my mind off this. And very often what the run can do is also help me look at it through a different lens. And we'll talk about it much more about this distraction because it's nuanced, meaning we're not about avoiding. So we'll talk about it next on Thursday when we talk about dealing with depression or dealing with anxiety using meditation, using mindfulness as a kind of distraction. But that's also one way of looking at the positive. And finally, the third P is about taking perspective. Is this really going to matter? This is Richard Carson's wonderful self-help book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the second, it's not all small stuff, but certainly a lot of the things that we sweat about in our lives, small stuff. Now, the issue with not sweating the small stuff is asking a simple question: is this going to matter in a year? Or in the large scheme of things, does it really matter? Is it worth my worrying and fretting and being depressed and upset and anxious about this now? Is this really going to matter in a year? And most of the time, it won't matter. The other side of this is that, well, then does anything matter? A few years ago, I was asked a very simple question by a friend, and he said, just I know we haven't talked about it before. This was a close friend, but can you tell me what psychological maturity is? From your research, can you think about what psychological maturity is? And off the cuff, at that moment, and over time I revised that definition a little bit, I said the following. Psychological maturity is about the ability to willingly shift perspective. And I think it's more or less right. Again, looking at the research about this ability to shift perspective. Why? Or what is this ability to shift perspective? It's the ability when we want to be immersed in the here and now, in the present. And it's the ability to, when we want, take a step back, zoom out, both in time and in space, and ask the question, is this really going to matter? Or in a year? Or in the grand scheme of things, space, is this really important? And at the same time, go back, almost at will, have this flexibility to go back and be immersed when listening to a beautiful piece of music, or spending time with the people we love. And again, it's easier said than done, but over time we can train our mind through meditation, through cognitively reframing things. We can train our mind to be able to make that shift almost at will. So let me give you an example of the 3 Ps applied. So this happened to me at the beginning of the semester, about 2 weeks into the semester. I had to take Shirelle, my daughter, to daycare, and I was running late. I was running really late, and what I like to do before lectures is to work out, and I realized I'm not going to have time to work out. I'm hardly going to have any time to go over the lecture notes that I do twice in the morning before the lecture, and I got upset, and I became stressed. Then I said, okay, let's take the 3 Ps and apply them. First P, permission. Acceptance. I said to myself, okay, so you're stressed, so you're upset. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be stressed, even if you do teach positive psychology. It's all right. The second thing that I said, respect for reality. This is the beginning of the semester. A lot of things are happening. We had just arrived from Israel a couple of weeks earlier. A little bit of jet lag, the kids. Respect for reality. It is what it is. And then I moved on to positive. Okay, so what's the benefit here? So the first benefit is, well, I need to think more about where I can simplify, what I can say no to, do less rather than more. So that was certainly a benefit there because it got me thinking about it. The second benefit that I thought about at that moment, oh, now I have another story to tell in class. An example of how I'm applying the 3 Ps. Distraction, very easy. I had the best distraction right next to me, Shirelle. And then perspective. Is this really going to matter a year from now that I didn't exercise before class, and that I didn't go over lecture notes twice but only once before class? So I'm not going to give a class which is 95% great, but just 90%. Is this really going to matter? No. But at the same time, I said to myself, I still want to be able to enjoy the here and now. So I took my time, spent time with Shirelle, stayed with her a few more extra minutes in daycare, we played together, and then went home much more relaxed, much calmer, having applied the 3 Ps to an actual situation that arose. Permission to be human, acceptance, focusing on the positive benefit finding, and finally, the ability to shift perspective. When do I want to zoom out and ask this, do I need to sweat over it now? And when do I want to be immersed in the here and now? Think about this technique. Again, very simple. Now, this technique is not equivalent to an inoculation, meaning it's not, okay, now you've learned the technique, I know about the 3 Ps, now for the rest of my life it's going to help me. That's not how it works. It works much more like a pill that you need to take on a regular basis. Meaning, if you're going through a difficult time, apply the 3 Ps. And the more you apply them, the faster it is. Now, very often, as I mention the term 3 Ps, already automatically I go through that process. Permission positive perspective. It's much faster now because I've used it, because I've practiced it. So use it constantly. Try it a few times. Again, bringing together a lot of the ideas that we have discussed in the course. Okay.